Welcome, everybody, to part 3 of our conversation with Keith and April Jones. Here we get to see where the kindness of God, the goodness of God, the grace of God, working in Keith's life, working through April a lot of times, begins to bring freedom that actually sets him free in a lot of ways and begins to cultivate something in their relationship. It opens the door for them to have deeper conversations, to have more meaningful conversations, and to have a level of intimacy in their marriage they'd not previously experienced. So enjoy the part 3 of this conversation about marriage and difficulties in marriage and recovering from marriage with Keith and April Jones.
What you said, that when God allowed you to see him as this little boy, and I know your story, Keith, having the weight of the world on your shoulders from a little kid because happened to be the biggest one, and you were the best on the team, and you get all that kind of stuff, and just performance pushed on you. And so really when you're, some people might listen to April's story about, you can, and you're saying you can't do anything, and and I'm thinking what's happened is all of that from your childhood all the way up is just bam, it's hit you all in one shot. And that's draining. It takes everything out of you. And that's, and that's kind of, I'm assuming that's kind of where you found yourself. Everything hit you from your whole life.
I wasn't even aware of all of that yet. But I knew that she had that conversation with God. And I knew that God told her, don't you think I love him more than you do? And her actions from that moment forward towards me changed. The pressure that I had felt was gone because she was obedient to what God told her to do. And that was the very beginning of me starting to change. Now, as months later, when a friend of ours had a dream about me that really changed, and she asked, after she shared the dream, she asked questions about my childhood and about all the responsibilities that were placed on me by my teachers, not even on the athletic field, but just by my teachers and my parents, and all of that burden that I carried. Because up to that point, I looked at it as, oh, that was a good thing. I was responsible for the whole class paying attention. I was responsible for the whole team practicing hard. I was responsible for our family's happiness by performing on the field. I thought those were all good things. But I was 8 years old. And I never looked at it that way until she asked those questions. And then, I just broke. I was like, that is not fair for an 8-year-old to be responsible for his classmates' conduct in class. That is not right for an 8-year-old to have the whole weight of the team success on his shoulders, and all the other things that were placed upon me. Yeah, I had a choice to make, or do you as an 8-year-old? I took that on. I really did. And, and I was given praise for it. So I was getting a reward for it. But, looking back, it's like, wow, that has caused me more damage as an adult. It caused me to be a right fighter. It caused me to be all about justice. Justice must be served, and I do. I hate it when the right thing doesn't happen. I hate it when, good people get taken advantage of, or it's a struggle that I still deal with.
Yeah. And so once she set you free, essentially, to do your own changing, right? I mean, that was the key for you being able to feel safe with
Yeah.
all that, right? How did that? So how did you start to wade into it?
It was a relief, right? It was a lot of weight was taken off of me. And then, it's essentially it's grace. And, we talk about grace all the time now, and people that are, about following rules and about doing right and being right, they don't understand the freedom of grace. But we were created to be free. Jesus said that he would set us free, and we'll know the truth, and the truth will set you free. And I was starting to feel this freedom. Now, what the right fighters and the do-gooders don't understand about grace is that whole part in the Bible where it says it's his goodness that causes us to repent, that draws us to repentance. I was free. I didn't have to change anymore because she's going to love me regardless. Well, guess what? It caused me to want to change. Being addicted to anything, it's not, you just don't get over that. Some people I've heard about, even Jack Frost, has talked about, he's delivered from pornography. Well, some people it's not a deliverance, but I don't know, it was 3-4 years ago. I don't even know, it wasn't like Jack. It wasn't a day that I could record. It was just one day I woke up and it was like, I think I'm free from the addiction of pornography. And, and I kind of started declaring it at that time. But as time went on, it was true. It was like the addiction's gone. The temptations and what have you are there, but I could say no. If you're addicted and you have the opportunity to go get drunk or get high or indulge in pornography, you don't really have the control to say, no, I'm not going to do that. You just, the thought comes and the next thing you know, you're in the middle of it. And, and that's something that people don't understand unless you have been an addict, unless you have been an alcoholic, a drug addict, or addicted to pornography, or addicted to anything. It doesn't even have to be pornography. It's a whole sexual addiction thing that goes on. And, people that don't have it, they don't understand. And it's a struggle.
And I was going to say, just for me, the wife's perspective, and it's not that, and I think I said it earlier, even if he chose that route, that God would protect me and we may not be married because, that was the boundary. Mm-hmm. And so I really had to trust God daily and help me to stay focused on me and to set, my boundary. And it wasn't like I was giving him the free for all just to do whatever he wanted and he could come to me and I would just open him with open arms no matter what.
Yeah.
So with the freedom, there was that boundary that God was helping me to see his pain. And I could even see his pain and love him, even if he chose a path where he got non-repentant and he just wasn't being honest. So that's what I was asking for, was giving him the freedom and me being the safe place where he could be honest and be like, April, I'm struggling.
Yeah.
To where I didn't shame him. I wasn't making fun of him. I could truly hear him and be like, okay, the problem's not the problem. It's not pornography. What is it? So that's when our conversation started changing to where we could have those conversations, to where when he was having those urges, to where maybe we could talk and get some healing there instead of just ignoring each other and me going to my corner and he going to his corner, and we're soothing our pains in different ways.
Yeah. One thing I want to bring out too is, this freedom is not a licensed sin. You're either struggling with pornography or with drug addiction or whatever your struggle is, or you give into it. I never gave into it.
Yeah.
I hated the things that I was involved in. It wasn't like, oh boy, I get to go do that,
Yeah.
Yet at all. It was a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And, had I just said, okay, well, I'll just go, jump headlong into it, she probably would have left me, and she deserved to have her freedom
Mm-hmm.
from a man that would treat her that way. It was a struggle. And I think that's important, because when I share this with my men in small group, I hear, some crazy things that, they go home and tell their spouse. It's like, I never said that. No, stop. Stop with the, whatever you're struggling with. Stop it.
Yeah.
I know that it's because it was a real addiction and a real struggle. I know you can't just stop it, but you have to be in that struggle, and
Was there a time, do you remember a time, either one of you, where, so maybe April, where Keith came to you and said, April, I'm struggling? Was there like a first time where you felt, or Keith, where you felt like, you know what, I'm having a hard time, and the person I can talk to about it is April?
Well, I know for me, I was so shamed that he would do something like that, because as a woman, you take it on as it's your fault.
Mm-hmm.
You're not doing something right to cause your husband to go outside the marriage
Right.
to get that need fulfilled. And so I would hardly even bring it up. I would act like it just didn't, I knew about it before we were married, and it's like, well, he's married now, and I just wouldn't even talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to know about it. So what we were doing is I would ask in a way is, how are you doing with that? Did you struggle?
Mm-hmm.
And he would respond. It was really shameful for him to come to me to tell me first. And so I would try to ask in a way that was loving, is, are you struggling? I was gone this weekend, how do you do? And he would. You're right, I did. And I would just shake on the inside and be like, God, help me to hear him. And then help me go to you, God, or my friends. And I would do this in my group. Okay, y'all, I am freaking out. My husband's still dealing with pornography. Y'all help me. Because I knew not to take that to him. That was shaming. But I had to be healed. I needed a place where I could talk about it and let people love me and affirm me that, you're right, April, that would bother me too. And then so as I was able to get that out and talk about it in a normal way with my friends, I was able to be present with him. So I learned that I needed people outside my marriage that I could trust and that was a safe place for me to get all that out to where I didn't take it out on him.
Yeah.
So that we would have that safe place to hear each other.
And so over time, that builds kind of what you're in, what you've got right now.
Yeah.
Right. So you're a safe place. That's great.
Yeah.
I had one more question that I was going to ask you, and I can't remember what it was. I was going to ask one more question, but then I wanted to ask, is there something that you can leave people with specifically to think about, maybe something they can go do as a sort of a practice or an exercise or something like that will get people kind of heading in the right direction toward having each other be a safe place? What would you recommend to a husband or a wife? Or
one thing, just for me, you can share, but is when you're communicating with each other, is try to get in the practice to hear what they're feeling, not just what they're saying. So when they're coming to you saying, like me, I need help with the dishes, but I'm really irritated, he would come and say, maybe sit me down. Okay, what's really going on?
Yeah.
what happened today, instead of, oh my God, it's just the dishes, do it. So take the time to hear what's going on behind what you're seeing.
Yeah. To me, there's three key things. One is learning to be authentic, and really knowing what authenticity looks like. And to me, the other two are to help that becoming authentic. One is the practice of vulnerability. And it's a practice. I have learned to become vulnerable and to be comfortable in my vulnerability. And it's not a gift that I have, okay? It's something that I've practiced over and over and over. And then the other one I'm still working on, but it's to practice gratitude and to the thankfulness, just learning to be able to get into that rhythm where you're just thankful for everything. The word tells us to, in all things, give thanks. And I think in those three things, learning to be authentic, practicing vulnerability, and then practicing gratitude, I think, to me, that is what caused the addiction to just kind of fall to the wayside. And, another one, and a big part of that for me falling off, was knowing how much God loves me. Of course, that's the root of our thankfulness. That's the root of our gratitude. Right. It's when we discover that we are his dearly loved child, and that we bring him joy daily. It's
April, I know you as the person who loves to talk about feelings, but you have a feeling sheet, right? Is that something that could be, I don't know, put in the Dropbox? We could put a link down in the show notes so people could download the feeling sheet.
Yes.
Because I know it's hard, like for me, if I'm better at that now, but if I'd have heard that 10 years ago, even, I would have been like, there's a feeling there. I know there's a feeling. I couldn't have told you what it was, but I would have known there was a feeling.
Yes, because, I've learned from Dixon Murray said all the time, the problem's not the problem. And, I brought that into the marriage. And because he would always ask, what are you feeling? If you are unaware of your feelings, because feelings are indicators of what's going on, and they started from somewhere in you. And so if you're with your spouse and they are really irritating you and making you mad, if you're aware of the feeling, because I can guarantee you they're not the first ones that caused you to feel that way. And so when you can just stop and slow down, separate, whatever, when you're in that fight with them, it's like, okay, how are they making me feel? Use that feeling sheet. There's several of them. How are they making me feel? When was the first time I felt this way? Was my spouse the first time when I was with him made me feel dismissed? Maybe it goes back to my parents or to a guardian or to a teacher. And then let God allow to show you your pain with that, to where you can get healed from that. And so you're not bringing it into your marriage, because what you're doing is you're denying that, and you're blaming your husband for something that he was not the originator of the pain in you. And then when you're triggered by your spouse, if it's just a normal reaction, like, that hurt my feelings, that was mean. But if you overreact, then you need to stop and ask God, where is that coming from? Because it is not your spouse. And so when you can do that individual work on, I'm always a big proponent of feelings and do your work. And when you do your work and your spouse does their work, I can tell you, you will come together in a much better place to hear each other. Your problems aren't going to go away, but you're going to create that safe place to where you can work together. Because Keith and I feel like we finally are a team where we can work together through my pain and what I'm going through, and we can work together with his pain and what he's going to where we're not feeling like we're alone being married.